Algebra 2.5 lesson notes, which is rewriting literal equations. So all that means is you are taking an equation like the one in problem 1, 10x plus 5y equals 80, and you're rearranging it, really. In fact, sometimes I use the word rearranging, and all that means is rewriting. So we're not necessarily trying to solve it. Later, we will be solving it for a specific answer, but at first, before we actually solve it, we just want to rewrite it. So let's look at problem 1. It says the equation 10x plus 5y equals 80, where x is the number of pizzas and y is the number of sandwiches, models the problem in the solve it, which is the problem we're looking at. How many sandwiches can you buy if you buy 3 pizzas, if you buy 6 pizzas? These are just 2 specific answers we'll get to in a minute. But first, we need to rearrange it and get y by itself. So when it says solve the equation 10x plus 5y equals 80 for y, all that means is we want to get y by itself. Right now, y is kind of in the middle of the problem, so we need to rearrange it, rewrite it to where y is by itself. So I'm going to start solving it exactly like I would another problem, but we want to slowly get y by itself. So I want to first subtract 10x to move it to the other side. So subtract 10x. It cancels over here and leaves 5y, which is good. We want y totally by itself, and we're getting close. 5y is now all that's left, and it was a 10x over there as well. Now, this is the number one problem I see. When kids take 80 minus 10x, a lot of times they put 70x, but 80 does not have an x and 10 does. So these are not like terms. So what I want you to do instead is I want you to leave them separated out. So it could be 80 minus 10x, or you could rearrange it and you could have it negative 10x and positive 80. The order doesn't matter. In fact, usually I will put the variable x first. So I'm kind of surprised I actually chose to write it like this in this case, but it doesn't matter the order as long as the negative goes with the 10x and 80 is positive. So I'll leave it like this for now, but know that it could have been flip-flopped. All right, let's take a look at what we have here. 5y equals 80 minus 10x. We've almost got y by itself. The only thing left to do is look at y and determine what's happening to it. So right now, y is being multiplied by 5. It's squished together, and so that operation is multiply. So we are going to divide by 5 to get y totally by itself. On the left, they cancel and go away, but when you divide the right side by 5, you're dividing both terms by 5, which is different and new. So when you divide both sides by 5, you're going to divide the 80 by 5, and you're going to divide the negative 10x by 5. I like to circle both of these parts. It kind of makes like a little heart. And so you just remember to divide both things by 5. So on the left, y is by itself, so we're done. But on the right, we have to do the math. So 80 divided by 5. I don't know what 80 divided by 5 is. I don't have my calculator either. Isn't that sad? So it's good to know long division. Looks like it's 16. So 16, and then negative 10x divided by 5 is negative 2x. So y is now by itself, and we have rearranged this equation. So 10x plus 5y equals 80 is the same equation as y equals 16 minus 2x. All we did was rewrite it. We rearranged it. And the reason we decided to do that is because x is the number of pizzas. So we want to know now, what if we had 3 pizzas? So if x is the number of pizzas, we're going to make x 3. So we're going to come down here and we're going to make x 3 and solve it. And the only way to do that was to have y by itself so that we can do the math over here. So what that's saying is 16 minus 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So 16 minus 6 is 10. So if we buy 3 pizzas, there would be 10 sandwiches. Okay, then it also said, well, what if there were 6 pizzas? So now let's go back to the same equation, and instead of 3, now let's try it with 6. So it'd be 16 minus 2 times 6. 16 that's negative 2 times 6, which is negative 12. 16 minus 12 is the same thing as 16 and negative 12, which is 4. So that would have been 4 sandwiches. So again, the reason you need to know how to rearrange an equation is because you need to know what, if we have some information, we can only solve it when the missing information is off to the side, is by itself. Okay, I gave you a whole list of formulas here. The perimeter of a rectangle is capital P for perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. The circumference of a circle is circumference equals 2 times pi times r, which is the radius. The area of a rectangle is length times width. The area of a triangle is half times base times height. Or I see this a lot as base times height divided by 2. That would also be the same thing. Area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. Distance is rate times time. And temperature is weird. To get Celsius, you take 5/9 times the quantity Fahrenheit minus 32. So these are just here for us to use. We need to choose the correct formula when we're looking at problem 2. So what is the radius of a circle with the circumference 64? So right away, we're going to look at which of these that makes sense to use. We have circumference, we have radius, and circle. So it looks to me like we're dealing with circumference, which is 2 times pi times radius. So let's use the c equals 2 pi r. C equals 2 pi r. And let's fill in what we know. It says the circumference is 64. So instead of this large C, I'm going to put 64. 2 times pi times the radius. And it tells us to use 3.14 for pi. I'm actually going to need a calculator for this. Grab me a calculator. Thank you. Okay, so here's what we want to do. If we want to use 3.14 for pi, it's 2 times 3.14 times r, which we still don't know, equals 64. All right, let's start breaking it down and doing what we do know. Thank you. It's good to have a daughter who will help run my errands. So 2 times 3.14 is 6.28. So this is 6.28, that's a 6, r. Okay, to get radius by itself, the last step, these are being multiplied, so you will divide by exactly what's next to our letter, 6.28 on both sides. Cancel, cancel. The radius would be whatever 64 divided by 6.28 is. Okay, it looks like it's a crazy decimal, 10.1910828, but that's why it says round to the nearest tenth. A tenth is one place after the decimal, so we're rounding the 1. And so in order to round the 1, you either leave it 1 or change it to 2 based on what the number after it is. So since this is a 9, it's going to shove this 1 up to a 2. So 10.2 would be our, 10.2 would be our radius. Okay, let's look at the next page. So the monarch butterfly is the only butterfly that migrates annually north and south. The distance, okay, distance formula, that word is going to make me go back to this and look for our distance formula. But let's double check that that's the right one. The distance that a particular group of monarch butterflies travels is shown. It actually isn't shown, but that's okay because it says it takes a typical butterfly 128 days to travel one way. What is the average rate at which a butterfly travels per day round to the nearest mile per day? Okay, since we're talking distance, we are going to use this formula. The distance equals the rate times the time. So distance equals rate times time. If it says it takes a butterfly 120 days. 120 days is the amount of time it takes. So that's 120. And then it says, what is the rate in nearest miles per day? You know what? We are missing the chart, so it doesn't say. So we actually can't do this problem. So that's okay. We're going to skip it. Sorry about that. We're going to skip it. It's fine. So in 11 through 18, but that is how you would solve it. I think you would also be given this information. Let's say it was, I don't know what it is. Let's say it's 1500 or something like that. You would divide both sides by 120 and so on and so forth. But we have to have that number in order to know what the actual rate is. So that's why we're not doing it. It's fine. Solve each equation for y. So all we're doing here is rearranging. And by the way, we're not going to do all of these because we have plenty to practice from. If you just want to get some more practice, go ahead and practice all 4 of these too. But for our notes, I'm just going to do 4 of these with you just to kind of make sure you know what you're doing, and then you're good. So let's do number 11. Y plus 2x equals 5. We're going to look at x equals all these things in a minute, but let's first rearrange or rewrite for y. All that means, again, is you're getting y by itself. So right now, y is not by itself. It's close. What's the only thing you need to do to get y by itself? You would need to get rid of this plus 2x. So how you do that is you minus 2x on both sides. Okay, y is by itself. You cannot combine these. Whatever you do, do not write 3x. A 5 and a minus 2x are not like terms. So I'm just going to write minus 2x, and that is positive 5. And again, the order doesn't matter. So if you wrote the negative 2x first, or if you wrote the 5 first, the order doesn't matter. I have a tendency to put the variable coming first, and I think later in algebra you'll appreciate it if you do the same. So let's just get in the habit of putting the variable first, and then bringing over here the other term. So now y is by itself, so we've rearranged it, and now it wants us to fill in x with all these different numbers. So let's start with negative 1. Negative 2 times negative 1, they're squished up against each other, which means multiply. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2, plus 5 is 7. So our first answer was rearranging it. So here's our first answer. Our second answer is when we plugged in negative 1. Now it wants us to plug in 0. So now let's go back up here and make this 0, which would be negative 2 times 0 plus 5. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5. So there's our second answer. And our third answer, it wants us to solve for when x is 3. So let's go back up here and make x 3. That would be negative 2 times 3 plus 5. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6 plus 5, which is negative 1. So here's our answer rearranged, and here are the 3 answers when x equals negative 1, when x equals 0, and when x equals 3. All right, let's try number 12. Oh, just kidding, it's 13. Number 13, 3x minus 5y equals 9. First, it wants us to just rearrange it. So let's get y by itself. If we want to get y by itself, the first thing you got to do is get rid of the other term next to it. So let's get rid of 3x by subtracting it. It's positive 3x, so we want to subtract it. That's the only way it will cancel. All right, when you bring this down, don't forget the minus. That is a negative 5y, and the negative goes with it. These are not like terms. Do not make it 6x. That's wrong. So leave them separated out. That's a negative 3x and a positive 9. All right, last step to get y by itself. It's being multiplied by negative 5 right now, so we're going to divide by exactly what's next to it, which is negative 5. The whole thing gets divided by negative 5 over here. Remember, both terms, we're going to do the little heart trick. Cancel. Negative 3x divided by negative 5, which is not going to come out evenly, and 9 divided by negative 5, which is also not going to come out evenly. So here's what I want you guys to do. If it's a fraction already, see if I kind of turn it, you can see that that's negative 3x over negative 5. When you divide, it's a fraction. We're just going to leave that fraction what it is. So we're just going to leave it 3/5 x. I didn't divide it because it's already a fraction. Now you may be asking me, what about these negatives? You didn't put a negative on here. That is because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So now the 3/5 x is positive 3/5 x. Okay, over here, I'm just going to leave it a fraction. 9 divided by 5 is something. It's some gross decimal. 9 divided by 5. See, it's 1.8. I mean, you could do that, but for our purposes, let's just leave it how it is. 9 over 5, let's just leave it 9 over 5. So I don't care if you don't ever do the math on that. 9 over 5. If it doesn't come out evenly, you can just leave it the fraction. Now, is it plus 9/5 or minus? This is a positive divided by a negative, which is going to make it negative. Okay, that's rearranged. So we did that much. And I'm going to change our instructions to not having to solve for x, because when we've got all these really weird gross decimals and fractions, it's not easy to do that. And for our purposes, for Algebra 1, I'm fine with you doing it only when it comes out evenly. Okay, so let's skip to number 15. Number 15 is 5x equals negative 4y plus 4. Okay, so first thing we need to do is get y by itself. So y is right here. You need to get rid of the term next to it. So we're going to get rid of the plus 4 by doing minus 4. All right, you've got negative 4y. And over here, do not combine them. That's an x and that's not. So don't say 1x or something like that. Just leave them separated out, 5x and minus 4. All right, last step. Y is being multiplied by negative 4. So you are going to divide by negative 4 on both sides. They cancel over here. And on the left, you're going to do the little heart trick. That gets divided by negative 4. And that gets divided by negative 4, both terms. So 5 won't divide by 4 evenly, so I'm just going to kind of tilt my head and see if I can see that it's already a fraction 5/4. So I'm just going to leave it 5/4, and that is a positive divided by a negative. So we're going to call it negative 5/4 x. This comes out evenly though. When you divide negative 4 by negative 4, negative divided by negative is positive. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. So there is our rearranged equation. And again, since we've got a wonky fraction here, I'm not going to make you do this part for now. That's okay. We'll do more of that later. Let's see if we can do it on number 17. And if not, that's all right, because we'll have more practice as the weeks go on. So let's do last one. Oh, so I've got y equals negative 5x plus 1. And it doesn't matter that y was at the end. As long as y is by itself, I don't care where it's at. All right, last one. Number 17 is x minus 4y equals negative 4. All right, we want y to be totally by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this x. It looks like it's a negative x, so you would add x, but actually that's the symbol that goes with the 4y. So if you were to add x, it would not be x plus x to get nothing. They wouldn't cancel. It would be 2x. So instead, we need to subtract it. That's the only way to get rid of it. 1x minus 1x is 0x, so that's the only way to get rid of it. All right, bring down the whole term, including the negative 4y. These are not like terms, so we're just going to leave them separated out. That's a negative x and a negative 4, so leave them separate. And then the last thing you're going to do before you circle your answer is make sure y is by itself. Right now, y is being multiplied by negative 4, so we're going to divide by negative 4 on both sides. So you're going to have to do the little heart trick where you divide that term and you divide that term. And then y will be by itself. Okay, this is tricky. I know we've mentioned this before, but anytime there is just a variable with no number in front of it, that is the same as a hidden invisible 1. So what I want you to do is 1 won't divide by 4 evenly. 4 will divide by 1 evenly, but 1 won't divide by 4 evenly. I'll prove it. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. 1/4 is 0.25. So since it's a decimal, I'm going to let you just kind of tilt it and see that it's actually just 1/4. And I'm just going to let you leave it as a fraction 1/4. And it's a negative divided by a negative, so it's positive 1/4. Don't forget your x is still there. And then 4 divided by 4 is 1. And that's a negative divided by negative. So once again, it is positive. Just so that we can have the practice now that we've rearranged this, let's go ahead and, there we go, do the filling in of these last 3, just so you can practice it one more time. I know it's a fraction, and I know I said we weren't going to mess with that, but 1/4 is not that terrible of a fraction. So let's try plugging in x as -2 first. So let's go to x, and let's first start by plugging in -2. So what that looks like is 1/4 times -2 plus 1. All right, 1/4 times -2. 1 ABC, if you have a fraction button, 4th, times negative. My negative is down here. Don't push minus. It won't calculate the same way. It has to be negative down here. -2 equals -1/2. So we've got -1/2 plus 1. All right, let's put that in your calculator. Again, negative is down here. Half is 1 ABC2. Okay, so that's -1/2 plus 1. +1/2. So the first answer is +1/2. All right, now let's go up and plug in 4. Okay, we got that answer. Let's go plug in 4 for x. So that is going to be 1/4 times 4. 1/4 times 4 plus 1. Don't forget your plus 1. It's the whole equation. 1/4 times 4 is actually going to come out evenly. So you're going to push 1 ABC, that's your fraction button, 4, 1 for 1/4, times 4, 1. Don't forget your plus 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So there's our second answer. And then the last one we're going to do is 6 for x. Let's make x 6. All right, so 1/4 times 6 plus 1. 1/4 times 6 plus 1. All right, practicing with your calculator fraction button. Yours may look slightly different than mine. Some people don't have the ABC button. Instead, they just have an already fraction button, and that's nice. I don't have that. So for 1/4, it's 1 ABC 4 times 6 equals 1. This little u means it's a space. 1 and 1/2. So this multiplied is 1 and 1/2. Then you've got plus 1. You can use your calculator if you want, but 1 and 1/2 plus 1 is 2 and 1/2. Okay,